I'm glad to have Jud Wilhite. Jud is a good friend of mine and a lead pastor out at Central Christian Church in Las Vegas. Jud, welcome to the conversation today.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be here with you, Tony. I love it.
For those that don't know you and the story of Central Christian Church, can you kind of give us an update on what's happening in your world?
Yeah, well, we're in a fairly challenging environment out here in Las Vegas, is at least where our kind of original campus is, and we really have a vision to reach hurting and broken people. That's kind of our sort of specific calling, we feel like, and it's definitely a picture of, I think, our country, but also our world, and so we're working really hard at doing that and reaching a lot of hurting people. We've kind of navigated the last 5 years of the housing collapse and all that, and seen some really wonderful God things that I think only come out of adversity, you know. And so we fear adversity, but it's that adversity that often brings about the most powerful spiritual lessons in our personal lives, at least for me and in our church as well. So we're running hard doing that. We've launched now in 3 states, 2 countries, so we've got campuses kind of branching out all over the place, and then we're in 5 different prisons with prison campuses. That's a big initiative for us, and about to launch hopefully 5 new campuses in the state of Colorado. And
wow!
So we actually go in and we do the whole. We have a volunteer team that does Celebrate Recovery, and that's really what gets us in the door with prisons. Prisons have such a high recidivism rate that they're interested in real tools and solutions that can help people when they get out not come back. And so most of them have no recovery program. So we come in and we run a 12-step program, and then that opens the door for us to hold church services. And so that's kind of how we approach that.
What a great journey. And that story of helping hurting people actually gets us to the point of today's conversation, because I wanted to talk about your new book, Pursued, just came out a couple weeks ago. And interesting, Jud, because you're writing from the story in Hosea, which is something, I don't know if I've ever read another book based on that chapter of the Bible. So why in the world did you land there?
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's exactly why, really. About 7 or 8 years ago, I did a teaching series through the book of Hosea, and it just kind of rocked my world. You know, the image of God in Hosea is so radical, and it's across the board, both his jealousy and his anger, as well as his love and his pursuit of people. And there was this sort of hinge phrase in Hosea chapter 3 that became pivotal for me, and it's when God comes to Hosea. I'm assuming your listeners know the story, at least at some level, probably have some framework. Yeah. Is that right, Tony?
Can you just back up for a quick second for those that don't and just give us a snapshot?
So, you know, Hosea is a prophet, and God comes to him and asks him to do something he never asked anybody to do before or since. He says to Hosea, basically, I want you to marry a prostitute so that she has children through her prostitution, and you, Hosea, you know, you get to raise this happy family. And it's very bizarre and hard to get our minds around. Some Jewish scholars and others have tried to sort of soften it, you know, and make it metaphorical, or, you know, you go through a lot of different gyrations with that, but certainly, you know, it's one of those areas where people have different opinions. I feel like if it wasn't literal, God would have let us know, because it all comes across fairly literal, you know, throughout the storyline. So Hosea marries this unfaithful woman, a prostitute, and manages this drama in the relationship, and God tees it up because his people have betrayed him, his people have turned their backs on him, and he wants his spokesman, his prophet, to speak from the personal perspective of betrayal, pain, and anguish that he's gone through with his people. Mm-hmm. So the pivotal moment for me is Hosea 3, first verse, where God comes to Hosea and says, hey, go love your wife, go find her, even though she loves another and is an adulteress, because that's how I love the Israelites. And I think what's so powerful to me is that Hosea is not commanded to wait until Gomer comes to him or repents or turns her heart back to him or gets her life together. He says, no, Hosea, you pursue, could be translated, you pursue your wife, even though she's loved by another and she's an adulteress, because that's how I love my people.
Yeah.
So that rocked my world like 7 years ago. And just the whole framework of the book of Hosea. And part of the dynamic for me teaching the book is I could not find a single nonfiction resource in print. I couldn't find one. I had Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers, and I had commentaries, but I had no sort of nonfiction, legitimate, book-wide treatment in a message kind of format to give me some ideas on the book of Hosea. And so not only did it rock my world personally, but as a pastor, I'm like, there's just nothing out here. And by the time I was done with the book, I felt like this is, if the cross of Jesus is the greatest picture of God's love for us in the Bible, I'm convinced the story of Hosea is the second.
Yeah.
And we just don't even talk about it. So
that's good. And so let me ask you this. With that story, and of course, most of the folks that are following my site are church leaders. How does that story, the whole premise of Pursued, how does that shift how we look at our ministry as a church? How is that shaping what you're doing at Central Christian, Jud?
Yeah, I think it definitely gives us a broader perception of God, and that's one of the things I really would challenge church leaders to dig into the message of Hosea. And obviously, I'd love for them to read Pursued, but to get their perception of God broadened, because what you have in Hosea is pretty raw and untamed, and it's emotion, it's jealousy, it's anger, but you walk away with a sense that God is so vested in this relationship. He is intense, it is personal, it matters. I'm one that believes God doesn't have to be vulnerable, but he chooses to be vulnerable. He doesn't have to experience these things, but he chooses to put himself in these situations. And so the application for us, too, has been as a church and as church leaders, if God cares this much about his people, enough to be this vested in the relationship and this sort of emotionally invested in what happens with his people, how much more should we be vested in relationships? And yeah, it's messy. I've often said ministry's messy, because sin is messy. So we got to get a mop, get over it, and clean up. That's what we do. But I think it's turned our hearts toward people and their pain and caused us to be more pursuing, in the sense that we're being proactive in going after people, even in the midst of their hurt.
Yeah.
And for ministry leaders, that's huge. And it's not new, but finding people in those transitions in their life when they're hurting and they're struggling, that's what so much of it is about. Those are the moments when you're open. And so that's been big for us.
All right, so tell me a little bit, and as the book has been released, you've also created this 14-day Pursued challenge. What's that all about?
Well, it's just a free email devotional challenge, and anybody, just if you want 14 days to kind of journey with me in little 500-word snippets through the book of Hosea, you can sign up at pursuedbook.com. It's free, and it's just a great way to kind of journey through the book devotionally over a 14-day period and just kind of let God speak to your heart through that story. So I'd encourage anybody to jump in with me on that. And you can sign up anytime, and it just automatically, every day sends you an email.
That's great. Well, Jud, I appreciate you giving us an update on what's happening at Central Christian, and super excited too about your book, Pursued. I'm assuming Amazon and all the great online bookstores have opportunities for folks to purchase that, right?
Yep, it's all there. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, very good. Well, thanks for connecting with us today, Jud. And any parting words for the folks that are watching the interview today?
Well, I just main thing I want to say to your audience who are church leaders and out there struggling and thriving and kind of trying to juggle everything is I think the message God's had on my heart a lot is to just keep delighting in Him. That's where it's all about, and that'd be my only encouragement to your people. It's Monday for us in this conversation. Yeah. It's Monday, so I'm tired. I am. I've got the holy hangover. I'm feeling inadequate, wishing our church services went better, wishing we had more momentum than we did right now. But I'm reminded today, hey, just delight in God. That's what it's all about.
All right. Very good. Thanks for that encouragement, Jud. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.